Hi everyone. I thought I'd make this video about some of the aquarium information I've gathered in my newbie experience as an aquarium owner. I've had this aquarium for about a year and I've learned a lot. I've made some mistakes, but I wanted to share some of the information I've learned so that maybe you could avoid those mistakes I've made. What you're looking at is a 6.6 gallon bookshelf aquarium from Petco. That's their name that they give to it because it's actually long and would fit on a bookshelf. It holds 6.6 gallons, and in this aquarium there are exactly two fish. Why are there only two fish? Because one is a 3-inch betta, which is right there, hiding behind that plant, and the other is a Siamese algae eater, otherwise known as a true siamensis, and it's really hiding in there somewhere. Oh, it's on the little leaf. I can see its little face sticking out. Each is about 3 inches long. Now, the rule of thumb that I've learned, and that is pretty standard, is 1 inch of fish per gallon of water. 3 plus 3 is 6. This is, like I said, a 6.6 gallon tank. So that is why there's only two fish in there. You put too many fish in there, too much ammonia builds up from their waste, which is very toxic to the fish, and they die. Ammonia is probably the biggest issue when dealing with aquarium, is dealing with their waste. Ammonia does build up, but thankfully there's what's called the biological filter. This is bacteria that grow that convert the ammonia to nitrates and nitrites, which are much less harmful. But it takes time for those bacteria to build up. And so in the initial stages, you're going to have some spikes unless you use something like CChem stability to add those bacteria right to the aquarium, which is what I did, to sort of give it a jump start. The reason there's so many plants in there too is because the plants take up the ammonia, the nitrates, and the nitrites as fertilizer and take those out of the water. They also take them away from the algae. Algae will always build up, which is why I have that Siamese algae eater. But plants, live plants, help reduce that. You do have to take out dead plant material so that doesn't decompose and add ammonia. But you're going to be doing water changes anyway and changing the filter, so what the heck, why not? Speaking of water changes, because this is, a good sized tank, and I do have a filter and I have live plants and so forth, what I found, and the fish seem to be doing fine, is I do about a 25 to 33% water change just every 3 weeks. And that seems to be fine. And I have not done a complete, change, and it seems to be going well. And I use a gravel filter and suck out the junk in the gravel, and they seem to be doing very, very well. I also have, as you can probably hear and see now, in the back corner, what's called a Smallworld filter. What I like about this filter is that it forces air through it to bring in, actually carries in the water into it. So it does two things. It filters, of course, but then also it aerates at the same time, which the betta does not need aeration because it can take oxygen right from the surface, so it needs to be needs to have access to the surface. But the Siamese algae eater does need aeration, and so that's there. You may have seen next to it, right here, where our little red friend, it's a female by the way, is a heater, a little heater, very cheap, very important. Bettas need to have a heater. They are tropical fish, as is Siamese algae eaters. As a matter of fact, they're both from Thailand, so they are used to one another. You have to have a heater. They'll get sick and die. No question. So those little bowls, you'll see these little kits. They're really not great for bettas. One, they're usually too small. Anything under half a gallon is just cruel. Just because they can survive in that little cup doesn't mean that's a good spot for them. And if you have, the smaller the thing, it's interesting. This is a fascinating thing. The smaller the aquarium, the more work. The bigger the aquarium, the less work. Because you don't have to do water changes as often, because there's more volume to deal with the ammonia. The biological filter is bigger. It can deal with it better. That smaller space, the ammonia can really build up fast. And so you want to, 5 gallons. 5-gallon filter tank is the smallest you should have a betta in. If you, like I said, if you're going to add another fish like this algae eater, Well, you're adding volume, so you need a little bigger tank. If I wanted another algae eater in there, I really should get a 10-gallon tank um, for them because, once again, its size. The live plants, I love the plants. They're beautiful, and as I said, they really help with the water. Also, with the betta, particularly with the male, the problem with the male is they're nasty, and so they really have to be alone. But also, because they have these long flowing fins, you want to be careful of plastic plants that they can sort of catch their fins on. So once again, live plants are better. So I talked about the biological filter. You can, like I said, use chemical things like Stability from Secam. There are some other products that introduce the bacteria that will help break down that ammonia, which is good. The filter is also important because those bacteria will grow on that foam part at the bottom. There, they also grow in the substrate, otherwise known as the gravel. There. This is important. When you do a water change, you don't change the filter at the same time because, like I said, the bacteria will grow. They grow on things, so they'll grow on the gravel. They'll grow on the filter. You clean the gravel with a gravel siphon and take out, a good chunk of the water. You take away the filter at the same time. You've just thrown out the entire biological filter, and so you're leaving the fish vulnerable. Like I said, I do a water change every 3 weeks. I change the filter about every 3 weeks as well, but I never do them at the same time. I always stagger them in some way. And once again, with a decent sized tank with plants and so forth, you're not in a rush, so you can make sure you're not doing both at the same time. And it's very simple. I love that filter because you can really take it out super easy. You see the light on, I have it on a timer, so it's on all the time. The Siamese algae eater, as I said, eats algae, and that's important. That's always going to build up. You're going to always have algae. But with the live plant soaking up the nutrients, with something like an algae eater in there, you'll keep it under control. You just got to be careful with the acrylic aquarium that you use the right kind of algae scraper, because every once in a while I do have to scrape it off, particularly the glass, the plastic. But you can't use just any one because it'll scratch. So you got to be careful. I'm going to give you a close-up of my algae eater right here. He loves to sit on that leaf right there. There he is. He'll also scrape the algae off those leaves too. In there I have an anubias, I have a water wisteria, I have an elodea, I have some apogetons, otherwise known as betta bulbs. I've got some water lilies, a big sword, some cryptocoryne. So a variety of plants. When you do the water change or change the filter, that's when you can take out the dead plant material. So you're not really, it's not like you're always playing with the plants either. They're fine. What else have I learned? Oh, feeding. I feed my betta this betta food from Aquarium, very cheap. Once again, you can find it at Petco. What I like about it is its number one ingredient is whole fish meal. Why? Because bettas are carnivores. You'll still see people say, oh, they can live in a thing of water with a lily plant, and they'll eat the roots of the lily plant, and that's fine, and the lily plant will take the waste away, and you won't have to even touch it. That's ridiculous. Bettas are carnivores. They don't eat roots of plants, and you still have to do a water change, or we'll have a dead fish amongst the things. So when you get betta food, make sure it's some kind of whole fish meal or shrimp or krill or something is the first ingredient. If the first ingredient is some kind of grain, well, that's not what they're carnivores. That's not really what they eat. Now, as for feeding the Siamese algae eater, what's great about it is not only does it eat algae, it eats dead plant material, but won't eat live plant material, which is important because some other algae eaters, like Chinese algae eaters or the catfish type, like Placos, they'll eat the plants, and so they'll eat the plants and not eat the algae. What's great about him too is he eats the algae. He'll eat what the other one drops if it doesn't eat, and I only give it 6 to 8 grains a day. That's it. Or if it regurgitates or whatever. But other than that, I don't actually feed the algae eater anything specific. Between the dead plant material and whatever this one doesn't eat, it's fine. And so, you just want to make sure you don't overfeed because, extra food in the water just creates more ammonia. So these are some of the tips I've learned. I hope they're helpful. And I hope you have a wonderful fish experience.